Live from the Clarity from Chaos studios, heard worldwide, it's Dave Campbell. On every episode, Dave and his guests explore, discuss, and work on solutions to some of life's biggest challenges. So, if you're ready, be prepared to be enlightened, amused, and even shocked by what you hear. And now, the real, the authentic, the one and only Dave Campbell.
Welcome back to another fact-filled edition of Clarity from Chaos. I'm your host, Dave Campbell. We are pleased to have the founder, president, and CEO of InvestUSA, Michael Letts, with us tonight. InvestUSA is a national grassroots nonprofit organization that is helping hundreds of communities provide thousands of bulletproof vests for their police forces. Michael's also the author of a terrific new book, Truth, Lies, and Control: Finding Hope in an Upside-Down World. Welcome to the show, Michael.
David, it's always a privilege to be with you, and we thank you for the opportunity.
It's all mine. So let's start out with the interesting stuff of the day, which are the Tesla vandalism, and we'll go from there. So your thoughts around all of that, because I keep hearing people are being arrested and we're chasing people down, but then it seems to fall into a dark hole.
Well, let me tell you where we're at. I talked to Pam on this earlier, and quite frankly, of course, we're changing the game. You remember 4 years ago when you had the Summer of Love with George Floyd, you had a different administration, and basically law enforcement was ordered to stand down. They got to riot, burn cities, whatever they want to do. At best, they got charged with a misdemeanor, a fine, and got to go home. President Trump has decided that this is a domestic terrorism issue and has requested, and the Attorney General has agreed, that those who have been engaged are now going to be charged with domestic terrorism. You say, what's the difference? Domestic terrorism is a felony, minimum 20-year sentence. So quite frankly, we now have 10 people that we've identified. 3, I think, or 4, I think is what I have been told, have already been issued their indictments and have been taken to jail and will stand trial. We've got a few more, especially the one that beat the 60-year-old woman that you probably heard about. We've identified him now. He's in Texas, and we've got the best U.S. Marshals Fugitive Recovery Team in the world assigned to that one. They'll get him. They'll get him pretty quickly. But here's what you're going to find out. The indictments that have come down, we're already getting response. And the response is, oh, well, that was just I made a mistake. I'll pay a fine. No, there is no negotiations. They will be going to prison. I'm having people call me and say, aren't you being a little bit harsh to send somebody to jail for vandalism? For, of course, they say, now, we understand if it was a fireball, maybe something like that, but they just keyed a car or right, kicked in a door or something like that. Isn't it a little harsh? It's all in your perspective. Because quite frankly, we want to send a message. There will not be a Summer of Love 2 episoding this coming summer. We're going to nip it in the bud now. There's a new sheriff in town, and quite frankly, we're going to hold people accountable for their actions. And here's what I tell people that we're talking to on the streets. If you think you're hurting Elon, you're smoking something. Elon doesn't even own those dealerships. Okay, you have investment groups that do. They're fully insured. They're fully covered. The only person you're hurting is yourself, because quite frankly, we support your idea of freedom of speech. You want to stand out there on the curb and say, I don't like Tesla, I don't like Elon, you can do that all day long and be protected. You want to start vandalism, you want to destroy property, you want to attack people, you want to do Molotov cocktails, it's now been changed to domestic terrorism. You will go to jail. It's not a matter of, are you going to get a plea bargain, you're going to get a $30 fine. You're going to jail. The question is going to be for how long. And so quite frankly, when you get that on your record, you've gone to jail, you've lost your job, strained your family, what did you gain by that? You're the only one, you're hurting only yourself. So we strongly recommend to those that are considering it. Now, I understand this is another matter we need to talk about, David, that it is being funded by outsourced groups such as
I was just going to ask you, Mike, the person on the bottom, the person that read the script, if you will, go out and do this because it's my birthday or whatever the hell it was. I haven't heard anybody or haven't heard anything yet, Michael, that we're going after where the money's coming from. The Soroses, the whoever, the donors, the pissed off Democrats, billionaires that are trying to muddle the waters with Elon. I haven't heard any of that yet.
That was just authorized by the president yesterday. The Attorney General has now added to it. We're not just going after the people who commit vandalism and destruction of property and put lives in danger, but we're going after the funding sources as well.
Okay.
So, George, I hope that you're listening to David's show tonight, because you're on our list and you're going to get paid a visit real soon.
Yeah, that'll be extremely interesting to see how that works. And I hope it does. I agree with you. People are going to scream like mashed cats over the fact that, like, just keyed a car. What can that hurt? Except keying a car probably is thousands of dollars in body work to get it fixed. Number one. And like you said, it's vandalism, it's terrorism, it's the whole 9 yards. And we should send a message. I mean, these people are doing stuff that's socially not correct. And we put up with that whole summer of them trying to burn down various cities, and nobody said a word. And of course, nobody's saying a word now. But I guarantee you, when the first person gets 15 to 20 years for keying a Cybertruck, the Dems are going to be going out, oh, woe was me, the sky is falling, how can we do this? Yet he's got a family, she's got a family, oh my goodness. But they never said anything about the BLM or the Antifa people burning down businesses in Minneapolis. Didn't say a damn word about it, right?
Well, and you're exactly right, David, because here's the point. If we don't nip it in the bud, David, we will have a summer of love too.
Oh, yeah.
On steroids.
No, exactly.
Because that was the problem 4 years ago, when nobody saw any consequences. Worst consequences, I pay a little fine, which, you remember, the people funding it will pay it for me anyway. So there were no consequences. It just took off like wildfire. We're determined not to let that happen again, and this is the most effective way.
Yep. No, I completely agree. So let's kind of shift gears then, Mike, and talk about the activist judges, because to me, they're going to play a role in this as well, because the first person that gets convicted, they're going to run the appeals flag up the pole, right? And it's going to land in one of these activist judges on his desk, and he's going to go foul, foul, just like the poor ICE agent today that got contempt of court over
in Massachusetts.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, the same kind of crap. So I know ISA has been there's a bill out to start restricting the federal judge jurisdictions, and then of course there's I think 22 at this date. There's 22 that have signed on to the impeachment of Boasberg, of the whole 1794 the Alien Act, right?
Yeah, the Alien Enemies Act is what it's
called. Alien
called.
Enemies Act, right.
And here's what's interesting, what you're talking about. This is a huge issue, David, because the activist judges are being utilized right now to not just pick on one issue or another, to totally try to circumvent and to derail all the Trump administration agendas. You take a look at, you've got a judge that said, hey, you can't kick transgenders out of the military, even though we know that transgenders do not make the military the best weaponized and prepared military readiness, war readiness that we need in this country. The commander-in-chief should make that decision through the Secretary of Defense, nobody else. We've got judges now that are saying, you took money away from USAID. We took it away because it was fraudulent money, not waste. It was fraudulent. We've got the information bureau. Well, we haven't decided that it's fraudulent. You have to put it back and continue to pay them till we decide. You've got 25,000 people that we've let go because we're trying to consolidate government. You can't do that. We have to tell you whether you have permission to fire. So what you have is a huge issue. Who's running the show, David? Is it the judiciary or is it the executive branch? Now, let's take a look at the Constitution, because this administration always falls back on the Constitution. The Constitution only created one court system, and that was the Supreme Court. Congress is the one that creates the additional district courts to assist the Supreme Court only in a particular district or area. They have no jurisdiction, and that's why they're called district courts. But yet you have Boasberg saying, you can't return any illegal immigrants. They all have to stay here. That's a national decision, and he thinks he has the authority to do so. We have to do something about it.
Yeah, it's funny because they don't talk about Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution, which you just mentioned, is that Congress, The problem, though, Mike, is Congress needs to step up and grow a pair and actually do something. Because, I've even heard Speaker Johnson say that, impeaching a judge is far beyond what we should be doing. Okay, that's fine. Don't impeach him, but take away all of his jurisdiction and everything else, which you have the right, which you have the majority to do, right?
Exactly. I think they're going to get that through the House to restrict. But here's where we really need to be, David, to solve this problem. And this is where we're pressing the administration. Quite frankly, David, let's just be blunt on this show and say where we are at. We have a Congress that is full of corruption. We have a judiciary that's full of corruption. You say, how do we know this? You're just giving an opinion. Oh, no. We have a list. We have the Epstein list that we need to talk about. It has more names on it and more members of Congress than we have time to talk about on this show. They have more members of the judiciary on that list. That's just one list. Let's talk about the Ukrainian list, who the Ukrainian put together with the documentation to prove it, that the money we sent over there didn't stay over there. It got sent back to NGOs here who paid all their board members who happen to be members of Congress, not $50, millions of dollars in payment to serve on their boards. Let's talk about USAID, who, again, we're talking about fraud, who have put money out to NGOs back again to Congress and the members of the judiciary who have benefited from this. So we have these lists. We have the documentation. Pam Bondi is preparing the indictments. I tell people to put this in perspective. We've got 30,000 empty beds at Gitmo today. It was built for one reason. It wasn't built for illegal immigrants. It wasn't built for hardened criminals. It was built for people who have committed treason and defrauded the government. And I don't think 30,000 is going to be enough to hold all the people that need to be indicted.
It may not, because when you look at the entire scope of it, Mike, it's nothing but a big laundering scheme. The whole thing is, lately Musk has come out and said he's going to start targeting the wealthy politicians and how they went from $170,000 a year to multimillionaires. For God's sake, you have AOC, who was a barista a couple of years ago. Now she's worth several millions of dollars.
20 million.
How does that happen? How do you go from schlepping coffee to becoming a multimillionaire? And I'd like to know how that works, because I've been working for 50 friggin' years and I'm not a millionaire. So
it works very simply, David, a number of factors. Let's talk about one that just comes to mind that we've just discovered through Doge. Hasn't come out public yet, but you had a former president named Barack Obama who came in at a value of 100,000. He's over 300 million today.
Right.
How did he go from 100,000 to 300 million? Very simple. He's getting paid $20 million a year of our tax dollars for Obamacare, because of the fact that now how he's not a licensed insurance agent, how he's getting a commission on every policy that's going out to the tune of $20 million a year, has been being paid that for every year that he's been in office and out of office, is beyond me. You have Michelle Obama, who submitted an invoice for a state dinner of $131,000. Somehow it inadvertently got checked that it was a monthly reoccurring invoice. She's been getting a check for $131,000 a month since back in 2012, something along those lines. For all those years, that's pretty easy how you accumulate that kind of wealth, when you're defrauding and laundering and stealing from the U.S. Treasury. That's just one example.
Well, yeah, okay. You've got the Clintons in Haiti, no
question.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about two people. We're not even talking about members of Congress. Wait till we go through the list of all the people in Congress who have gotten kickbacks from Ukraine and everything else. So back to the point we were talking about. How do we really solve this problem? We start issuing the indictments. We start rolling the TV cameras. High-profile people in Congress, former presidents, etc., walking away in handcuffs and being shipped to Gitmo to stand for a military tribunal. Suddenly, you have a whole different perspective when that happens, and that's how you begin to get Congress to do their job. Because here's what happens, David. Let's just say we lock up 2/3 of Congress. Suddenly now, here's how the process works. Let's just be very blunt, David. We're going to vote against everybody because Congress is our scum, except for mine. We're going to put mine back in. That's the way we operate across this country. That's why nobody loses. They all go back, because we all have that mentality. We're going to remove that ability from you. We're going to send your congressman, not because we don't like him, but because you have the evidence of an indictment. Now, if for some reason he gets declared innocent by a military tribunal, he can get his seat right back. But until then, there's a vacancy. and we're going to ask America to send people of integrity and values back this time. Get it right. Let's get Congress cleansed and drained. Then let's have them go into the judiciary and say, you know what? You people have been indicted, but you still have your judgeship because you have to be impeached. We're going to go impeach every one of you judicial people that have been indicted. So you can't come back either. And let's appoint some decent judges who understand the Constitution. That's how we restore integrity back into America once again.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Mike, because Jerry Spence several years ago came up with a concept called pancake democracy. And he basically went back. They were going to repeal the 16th Amendment and put senators back in the states to be chosen, and then a lottery system for the House of Representatives. And they'd be compensated, they'd be staggered every 6 years, but it would come from basically the rank and file of the population of each state. They had to be 35 years old.
Right.
They had, so on and so forth. And then they'd go do their 6 years. They'd be compensated just like if they went into the military. They'd come out, go back to whatever their job was, and then the lottery would then continue to put fresh blood into the government, as opposed to Mitch McConnell sitting there for 40 years, collecting his paychecks. I'm sure a variety of paychecks is what he's been collecting.
He's at the top of the list from Ukraine.
I'm sure he is.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure between that and Raytheon and a few other ones, I'm sure that he's being well taken care of.
When we say they're worth 200 million, 300 million, that's what we know of. That's not all the private accounts in the Cayman Islands and other places. That's what we're able to find right now. So it's just, this is where we're headed. It's interesting what you raised that the president issued an executive order to Pam Bondi, and Cash agreed. They're going to investigate every member of Congress, every single one. So if you came in with 100, you still have 100 in your account. That'll be a 30-second investigation.
Right.
You came in with 100, you got 30 million in your account. I think we're going to spend a little time with you.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
figure out what's going on.
And there's probably, being fair, there's probably a few of them out there that have played it close to the vest and done it the right way. But
we'll find that out and know that for a fact, won't we, David?
Yeah. I think it would be of value to know that, and and quite frankly, I think what you're going to end up seeing, Mike, is the complicity that the legacy media had with the vegetable that we had for a president for the last 4 years.
No question.
We're gonna see that all over again as well, because I'm sure that they've been in on the game as well, right?
And I think the other thing you'll see, David, is some changes that need to be made. There may be some that argue, I made that legally with insider trading, but there was no law that says I couldn't do it. So, there may be some of them that escaped the guillotine, shall we say, because we didn't have a law in place. But I think the American people are going to decide, well, that ain't happening anymore. Let's make sure we have it in place and it can't happen again. And
Exactly.
by the way, if you were that slick to do it, I don't want you representing me in Congress anymore.
Exactly. The only problem I have with all of this, Mike, is the fact I look back on what happened with the COVID-19 and the ease in which people were manipulated in this country. It worries me that, that's going to come into play as well.
I think you're already seeing that, David, and let me tell you why. There's no reason why the Epstein files should have not have fully have been disclosed.
Exactly.
There's no reason why the Ukrainian files, the USC, I realize judges are threatening. There's a lot going behind the scenes that the American people are unaware of. But the fact that we are allowing intimidation and fear to make our decisions as to when things should be released is uncalled for. You do the right thing and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, it's like the JFK files. I don't think we'll ever see the truth, because I'm sure that there's going to be certain components in those files that never see the light of day. The same with Epstein, and they're going to come up with we're protecting the names of the innocent and all that, which is total BS.
Correct.
Because I'm sure the innocents would love to see the names on that list billboarded up as some validation of what these people did.
You're exactly right. I think where the problem lies with the Epstein list, quite frankly, is it is not just under our jurisdiction. It's a world operation.
MI6, MI5, all the rest of them.
The Israeli, Mossad, all of them are involved.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of like, And of course, I was on another show. They said, "Well, who's actually in charge?" Well, you ask any of those, and they'll say they are. But really, the truth of the matter is, nobody usurps U.S. authority and U.S. power. So, quite
Right.
frankly, it's our rogue agencies that control the
Right.
helm on that, and they're going to argue that I don't want to divulge and hurt allies, by doing
Yeah.
so. You're exactly right, but they're just going to continue to pound the thing. I
Oh
feel
yeah.
bad for Pam because I keep reminding her we made a commitment. We
Yeah.
said to the American people the list was going to be released. Now, by George, we need to do it. Otherwise, we're no better than any other administration.
Yep.
And that really becomes a hopeless situation. If Trump is no better than anybody else, I
Yeah.
don't know where else we go from here.
Mike, I don't either. And I can't think of any place on the planet that you're gonna get anything any better, right?
I agree.
And the reason I say that is because it seemed like during COVID, the entire world was playing out of the same PowerPoint presentation. They were reading the same damn talking points. So,
Yeah.
somebody at the top of the pyramid was pulling the strings of everybody. So whoever the hell that is, or the group of whoever the hell they are, I don't know of any place you can get away from. Right.
No, and I will tell you this, on a positive note, in my conversation with the president and members of the cabinet, the commitment is still there. We have not backed away from the commitment to get it released.
Right.
But I can tell you it's probably 10 times more difficult than we ever realized to get the job done.
Oh, I'm sure it is. And it's going to take more than 4 years, Michael, to get it done.
It is. No question.
And to me, that's going to be probably the paramount component of Trump's presidency, is to set up the next 4 to 8 years after he's done, because it's going to take that damn long to get a lot of this fixed.
I agree wholeheartedly. He is aware of that. Of course,
I'm
that's why
sure
he
he
says,
is.
I'm serving 3 terms instead of 2.
Yeah, exactly. So let's shift gears and talk about your nonprofit, about the bulletproof vests and stuff.
Well, there's a lot of positive to talk about, and let me tell you why. We had an officer that was shot Sunday evening in Philadelphia. He responded to a call of a gentleman who was mentally ill, wanted assistance to get to the hospital. We sent 3 units, actually. And because of the sensitivity, he was seeming to be cooperative, etc. They didn't cuff him. And when they went to load him in the transport, he got the weapon from the officer and shot him twice. Now, fortunately, he's going home to see his kids because he had a vest on. So I make that point to let you and your listeners know they work and they save lives. And quite frankly, we are asking America's finest to help drain the swamp. We're telling them we're going after the cartel. We're going after the child sex traffickers, the terrorists, the rapists, the murderers that this country has allowed to come in under Biden. But they're outgunned and they're outprotected. Quite frankly, the cartel has better protection than our people on the street do. 90% of our cops do not have active shooter vests. So what's the difference? Concealable vest is what you wear underneath your shirt. That was created 30 years ago. But at the time, that was all that was necessary because criminals were ashamed of what they did. David, that's why you put a pistol underneath, your shirt before you went in the convenience store to rob it. Nowadays, with the cartels, they're proud of what they do. In fact, they want you to know that they are controlling your neighborhood. So they use AK-47s, long-range rifles, cut right through a concealable vest as if you weren't wearing one at all. That's why we had to stop and create new technology called active shooter vests. Have titanium plates in them. Stop anything on that's out there. The problem is only 10% of cops across the country have this technology because it's relatively new. 90% do not, and yet we're asking these brave men and women who we've treated like crap for the last 4 years to put their lives on the line to help rid and cleanse this country of these kind of gangsters and these kind of problems that we have, and we can't even show them that we want them to come home safe to their families. That's a tragedy, David.
Yeah, no, I agree. And since it's a nonprofit, how are you funding it?
Basically, just donations that come in from people that listen to you and I on the radio.
Really?
We also have mail outs, that go out. But surprisingly, just so that your people know, we're raising a few million a year. You say, wow, you're doing great. I got to tell you, when you consider how many officers and how much a vest costs, I need actually billions to actually get the job accomplished. But we'll take what we can get. One life saved is worth every effort that we've done.
Oh, absolutely. Well, while we're talking about it, Mike, where do they go to make the donation? What's the website?
Go to our website. That's InvestUSA. Now it's .org. It's a charity. .org. There'll be our website. keeps track of everything that's going on. You can go there to find out what's happening politically. You can go there to make a donation. There's a donation button for our first responders. You can find out where we're giving vests out, what time, where, what locations. All that's available. Folks, if we're going to make this country safe again, we all have to pitch in and help. Let's do what
Yep.
we need to make this country reestablished. Otherwise, we're going to lose it, David.
Nope, I agree. Just thinking offhand, when you have a lot of these blue cities, do you think Trump's election is going to have an impact? I know Holman's going in there and he's snatching up the bad illegals that have come into those areas. But there's still, like in Chicago, they're still shooting each other left and right. And I can't even imagine being a police officer in that area and having to deal with that.
And not even having the active shooter vest to protect yourself. That's what's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
But let me explain to what your situation, the point you just raised, David. Here's what we're seeing. Because people are actually seeing action. I realize it's the illegal immigrants, but they're still the drug dealers, still the cartelists, they're still
Right. Yeah.
criminals. And as they see them come off the street, they're noticing that the crime element is declining. I think what you're going to find out is they're going to say, kind of like ice cream, and I like the way this tastes, I want more. And they're going to demand out of their public servants, you either get us more or we're getting rid of you. And I think that's what you're going to begin to see all across the country, especially in these blue states. I think people have had enough. They're just looking for a leader, somebody to help them understand, how do we make the change? Because, hey, these thugs is what I call these Democratic leaders in these cities are certainly not going to change on their own. They're not going to step down willingly. I can promise you that.
No, and I'm going to be kind of interested to see how this Boston, Massachusetts thing comes out with that poor ICE agent being held in contempt of court. It boggles my mind that a judge would pull that crap. And I can't even imagine what's going through the agent's head when, he's doing everything that he's supposed to be doing. And you have this person in a robe pull that. It just, it would almost make me want the AG to call the guy up on the phone and say, you're done, out of here. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what you're going to see, David. And here's where we're at in this country. Just the same with the activist judges. Who's running the show?
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I mean, if our commander-in-chief, if our president does not have jurisdiction over federal law, and you remember federal law supersedes state law, and quite frankly, federal law is you cannot be in here illegally. So I don't care what trial was going on. The man was here illegally on a federal crime, and so he was picked up. I don't care if it was in the middle of the trial. He's going to be picked up and do what the law says. We're deporting him. Now, for a judge to say, you can't mess with him because he's under my jurisdiction, you're usurping authority that you don't have. So quite frankly, I think he's going to end up being impeached. He needs to be removed.
Yeah.
If you don't understand the law, David, what are you doing sitting with a black robe trying to apply it?
Well, I think part of it, Mike, is the whole DEI scam.
It is.
Quite frankly, I think a lot of these guys probably barely made it through law school or however they got there, and DEI prevailed that they needed to have a person of color sitting on the bench or whatever. And in Massachusetts, God only knows the DEI aspects of how that guy got sitting on the bench.
Well, you're right, Dave. One of the things we just found out, that still hasn't become public yet, is that we've just discovered on the federal bench in the Washington, D.C. area, and in that area, we have, I think they were telling me it was 17 or 27 judges who have been put on the bench who are not even citizens, who are illegal immigrants who've never been to law school. And they're sitting as a federal judge or a federal magistrate because they were appointed by the Biden administration. Can you believe it, David?
Yeah, I can believe it. I really can. Nothing that's happened in the prior 4 years, Mike, surprises me anymore. I mean, when you had a vegetable sitting there and nobody really knew who was pulling the strings behind the curtain, and nobody went and opened the curtains like, the Wizard of Oz until it was too late. I can't even imagine the length and level of moral destruction to this country that 4 years caused. It's unimaginable.
We strike something new every day. I think today you can't surprise me any more than what I've already been surprised. And then tomorrow comes and something else comes up instead.
Well,
it's unreal, David.
You need to keep up the good fight. We've been talking to Michael Letts, who's the CEO of InvestUSA. please go out to his website and make a donation so that he can continue the good work of supplying the shooter vests to our best and finest out there that are protecting our butts. And Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, it's been an honor to be with you, David. I look forward to doing it again. Thank you for what you're doing, because quite frankly, if we rely on mainstream media, we're all screwed because they're not telling a single story that's going on. You're getting the truth out, and we thank you for that. God bless you.
Well, thank you. And God bless you for doing what you're doing, my friend. So take care, and we'll circle the wagons again in the not too distant future.
Look forward to it. God bless America. Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to listen to more Clarity from Chaos shows on demand, go to clarityfromchaos.buzzsprout.com or send Dave an email at info@clarityfromchaos.com for information on previous shows. You can also listen to the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Twitter, or Google Podcast. Until next time, please remember, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Be well, everyone.